faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today, I'm going to interpret for you a book called Of Mice and Men. This novel has had tremendous impact in American history. Not only is it a long seller, but it's been adapted into movies, plays, radio dramas, and even set records on Broadway. Of Mice and Men ranks first among the 10 must-read literary works for American high school students. Following closely is Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. Of Mice and Men is a novella by Nobel Prize-winning author John Steinbeck. The novel's creation is deeply connected to the author's life experiences. Let's briefly explore Steinbeck's early years. Born in 1902 in Salinas, California, he worked as a farmer, laborer, and fisherman during his youth. By 1929, America faced its worst economic crisis, commonly known as the Great Depression. Steinbeck and his wife became destitute, surviving on odd jobs. They even stole food from markets just to eat. And only after 1935, when his novels gained recognition, did their situation gradually improve. But the Great Depression left indelible marks on the writer. In 1937, he wrote Of Mice and Men, where the protagonist's struggles mirrored Americans' universal crisis experiences. Their relentless fight resonated profoundly with millions. The novel received instant acclaim from critics and readers alike upon publication. Steinbeck won the 1962 Nobel Prize, cementing his place among literary giants. Now, let's examine the plot set in Steinbeck's own hometown, Salinas, California. Farmers bought land with loans, dreaming of repayment and better lives, until the Depression's inflation buried them in debt, forcing foreclosures. These poor farmers lost their homes and wandered about, only able to work for landowners. They're just like Mac in White Deer Plain, moving on after finishing work at one farm. They're homeless, toiling day and night for meager wages, always fearing layoffs and struggling for basic food and shelter. Their biggest dream is to work hard, own some land, end this drifting, and finally control their own fate. The protagonists of Mice and Men are part of this migrant worker crew, a pair of young friends named George and Lenny. Well, their story's straightforward. It's about land dreams during the Great Depression. The novel packs the dreams of these two underdogs and the harsh realities of Depression-era America into just 3 days on a farm. The two main characters are sharply contrasted, almost weirdly so. George is small and skinny, but sharp and resourceful, always has a plan. Lenny's huge and strong, but has low intelligence, almost simple-minded. They're from the same hometown. Lenny was raised by his aunt, and when she passed, she left him in George's care. At first, George treated Lenny like a toy, messing with him carelessly. Once, he told Lenny to jump in a river, and Lenny did, nearly drowned. After that, George felt awful and vowed to himself to treat Lenny right. During the Depression, they became migrant workers too, teaming up on a farm, hoping to save up, buy land, build a home, raise animals, fulfill their farm dream. But Lenny's totally hooked on this farm idea. He adores animals, especially wants fluffy bunnies, but reality isn't so kind. After only 3 days there, Lenny accidentally killed someone. He couldn't control his own strength. Turns out, the farm boss's daughter-in-law, lonely, came on to Lenny, but he yanked her hair hard, making her shriek. Lenny panicked, covered her mouth, shook her, and snapped her neck. Lenny got scared and ran away. When George found out, he knew their farm dream was shattered. To save his friend from lynching and survive himself, with no way out, George picked up the gun and killed his best friend himself. The novel's only about 70 to 80,000 words, and the story happens over 3 days. But it has many characters, a tight plot full of suspense and constant dramatic conflicts. Author Steinbeck shows eternal themes like friendship, loneliness, and dreams through poor, rough workers. Now, I'll tell this classic novel through these themes. A key thread is the friendship between small, shrewd George and strong, simple minded Lenny. In this friendship, George always plays the dominant role. He corrects Lenny's mistakes, helps with daily routines, protects him from bullies, and comforts him with their farm dream. Um, Lenny gives him hope, but Lenny often causes trouble because he can't control his strength. At the last farm, Lenny was accused of rape for grabbing a girl's skirt, so George had to flee with him. Because of that, they had to find new work. Before reaching the new farm, they came to a clearing in the bushes. George told Lenny, "If you get into trouble again, hide here. I'll come help you. You know I'll always be there for you." Hearing this, the anxious Lenny smiled. George's words meant everything to him. George and Lenny's friendship is admirable, but it's not traditional. It's unequal. George acts as the leader, while normal friendships need loyalty and trust. Between Lenny and George, it's just dependence and reliance. Because of Lenny's low intelligence, they can't connect deeply. They're still two lonely individuals, so George tends to play cards. Lenny loves petting furry animals. They pass lonely times this way, but this loneliness leads to tragedy. George killing his best friend, a mentally challenged man, only more desperately proves human alienation and loneliness. The atmosphere of alienation and loneliness is even more intense in the others on this farm. Why don't the workers have much friendship among themselves in this farm? During the economic depression, job opportunities were scarce, wages meager, and layoffs could happen anytime. So everyone was focused on survival, used to distrusting others and self protection, making it hard to build friendships. When George and Lenny arrived at the new farm and moved into the crude workers' quarters, the first to greet them was Candy, an old man who'd lost an arm in a machinery accident. He kept to himself, with only an equally old, sore-covered, nearly blind dog as company. Candy had deep affection for his dog, inseparable since the dog was born. But to the other farmhands, such feelings were worthless. They saw the old smelly dog as a burden. One worker kept telling Candy, "Just let me take your dog out and shoot it. I'll shoot it in the back of the head. Promise it won't feel a thing." But another said, "Candy, I'll give you a new pup if you let it kill the old one." Candy resisted at first, but gave in under ridicule. When the shot fired, he turned his face to the wall in grief. That night he stared blankly, sleepless. To him, the dog's fate was his own. Another worker in the bunkhouse was Crooks, a black man. And due to his identity, he rarely spoke to whites and kept silent. One night, when others went to town, only Lenny and Crooks remained. Many chatted and shared their farm dream with Crooks. Crooks coldly said, "You're dreaming. I've worked years. Every hand has a dream like yours. Has a single one ever made it?" Crooks believed he'd never rise in this unfair society. Moreover, he scorned others' attempts to change fate. He mocked George and Lenny's dream, yet Crooks was deeply lonely inside. He once confessed to Lenny, "A man needs somebody beside him, too. Alone, you go crazy." The farm owner's son was named Curly. "Oh, he's newly married but always leaves his wife at home to party in town." Curly's wife is so bored, she sneaks into the workers' bunkhouse, hoping for someone to chat with. But she dresses flashy, acts coyly, and talks wild. Not popular with the workers. Worse, nobody dares talk much to her, afraid of causing trouble or losing their job. It's life or death, so she goes to simple-looking Lenny, asking, "Why can't I talk to you?" "Nobody talks to me. I'm dying of boredom." To fight reality and loneliness, George and Lenny built their friendship and dream, owning their own farm. For these migrant workers, life's tough under farm bosses' harsh treatment. Drifting from farm to farm is miserable. Like beggars, no land, no home, nothing theirs, just wandering, working hard for pennies to survive. That's their whole life. But they've got little dreams, hoping to work hard, own a small plot someday, and live off the land. Oh, Everyone dreams of land, that love and chase is the heart of this novel. George and Lenny are just regular guys. When things go wrong, that little dream gives them huge strength. For their own house, couple acres, some pigs and a cow, they'll put up with anything. Early on, George asks Lenny, "Why are we slaving away here? We're saving up. Once we got enough, we'll buy a farm, grow fruit trees, raise cows and sheep, and keep rabbits too." Lenny lights up at rabbits. He's crazy about fluffy critters and soft stuff. Hmm. This dream's pretty much the only thing keeping them going in the book. George always cheers Lenny up with that dream. Dreams spread. When Candy hears George and Lenny's dream, he gets hooked and asks, "Is that farm real?" Then he said, sadly about himself, "They're going to kick me out soon as I can't sweep the bunkhouse anymore." So George initially guarded their secret dream. He quickly understood Candy was old and disabled, and now even his lifelong dog had been shot. All alone, without any dream, it'd be hard to keep living. Candy immediately offered to contribute his life savings if George and Lenny let him join. He said, "Though I can only do small jobs like washing dishes or feeding chickens, it's on my own land, working for myself." So the three made a deal, and George even cheered optimistically. "Just 1 month's work here," he said, "and we can buy that farm." This is one of the novel's brighter, warmer moments. Three penniless laborers are uplifted by dreams and friendship. But as migrant workers, their wages and fates are controlled by farm owners who don't care about their dreams or friendships. They could be fired anytime. Even a full month's work wouldn't earn enough with their low pay to buy a farm. For these homeless seasonal workers, owning land and a farm is a powerfully alluring dream. The dream's so beautiful and urgent. George and Lenny are so determined that even the skeptical Crooks, who once mocked them, was moved. He told George, "If you need an unpaid hand, just room and board, I could help." Dreams became the driving force for these men. One day, Curly saw Lenny's simple look and thought he could bully him safely. He punched him, making Lenny's face bleed. The timid Lenny begged for mercy. George couldn't stand it and said, "You can fight back." To Lenny, that was like an imperial order. Instantly, Lenny grabbed Curly's arm, twisted it, crack. The bone broke. After they helped the injured Curly away, Lenny trembled in fear. George comforted Lenny, telling him not to worry. He did right by teaching that guy a lesson. Oh, to comfort the frightened Lenny, George painted their dream again. They'd have their own farm where Lenny could raise his little rabbits, and Lenny instantly turned from sorrow to joy. George said this not just to soothe Lenny with the dream, but also to boost his own courage. Because he didn't know if Curly would seek revenge, though Curly didn't out of pride. As the story went on, the protagonist faced growing disturbances and threats. George often described the dream more as escaping reality than reaffirming their goals. The reason he didn't tell others about buying the farm was fear they'd pour cold water on it, saying coldly that their dream was just a fantasy. So was this dream really just a fantasy? George's worst fear came true. Once, Lenny was alone in the bunkhouse when Curly's wife came to him. Lenny got nervous, shrinking back uneasily, but the more nervous he was, the closer she got. She shared her dream of becoming an actress. She asked Lenny why he liked small animals. Lenny said, "'Cause I like touching soft fur." And the woman said, "Then touch my hair, just don't mess it up." At that moment, Curly's wife looked charming, with a simple and sweet smile. But Lenny was too nervous. As soon as his hand touched her hair, he grabbed it, and she screamed. Lenny grew more scared, gripping tighter, covering her mouth, shaking her until Curly's wife slowly went limp in his hands. Turns out her neck had been broken by Lenny's shaking. And Lenny had no idea that this woman just needed some affection from him to ease her loneliness. And Curly's wife isn't likable in the novel, but her fate leaves a deep impression. George and the other workers avoided her. calling her a jinx, and her husband was tired of her. Their marriage was loveless, and her dream of becoming an actress was just as beautiful as Lenny's dream of his own farm with fruit trees, cows, sheep, and rabbits. But her dream was crushed. She lost her direction in life and even paid with her life. In Steinbeck's writing, Curly's wife was far more beautiful in death than in life. She seemed to sleep peacefully. All the lowly, depressed, and intense emotions vanished from her face on the haystack. Oh, she was beautifully natural with a lovely face glowing with youth. But Lenny was terrified. He knew he'd killed someone, yet with his mind, his first thought was George would be mad. He hid Curly's wife's body in the straw, then fled to the clearing in the bushes, the meeting spot George had set. And then Candy found the body and told George immediately, still worrying about their dream. He asked George, "Can we still buy the farm with just the two of us?" Seeing Curly's wife's corpse, George instantly understood what happened and what it meant for them. His eyes froze. Despairingly, he said, "I should have known. I wish I'd realized we'll never make it." George admitted the whole dream was a fantasy, but he'd grown attached to that fantasy himself. Seeing Lenny's absolute trust and excitement about the farm and rabbits moved him deeply. He wanted to believe it possible if they stayed out of trouble. Poor old Candy finally realized his dream was shattered. Angrily he spat. "Then it's all over." Blaming Curly's wife, cursing, "You damn bitch, happy now?" His voice shook. Reciting mechanically, he said, "I could have weeded their garden, washed dishes, no need to ask leave for going out. A stove in winter, sitting indoors when it rains. These ordinary lives, these simple dreams, now just fantasies to Candy." He broke down sobbing. Now Lenny's fate was urgent. George and Candy knew what torture Curly would inflict. Then Curly indeed screamed about ripping out Lenny's guts. George said, "We can't let Curly hurt Lenny," tears welling in his eyes. Finally, George understood. In their world, friendship and dreams were fragile. Let the farm dream live on as innocent Lenny's eternal dream. And I'll just keep sinking into loneliness like Crooks and the others. George knew what he had to do. He had Candy alert the others while he arrived last, pretending shock. The novel's ending is heartbreaking. As the farmhands hunted Lenny, George secretly grabbed a gun and ran to their meeting spot in the clearing. Lenny was there, looking proud. He remembered George's words. He'd come as promised to wait for George, who found him strangely calm. George didn't yell. He just scolded Lenny, like always, for being troublesome. Lenny said, "Let's run away. Find a cave to live in." George replied, "No, we'll stay together." Relieved, Lenny asked, "What about our farm?" George answered, "See, others drift alone in this world, but we have each other. Take off your hat. Look across the river. Our farm's there with rabbits. No one will hurt you." Lenny said, "Then let's go now." George said, "Okay, we'll go now." As they spoke, pursuers' voices grew near. While talking, George slowly aimed the gun at Lenny's head and pulled the trigger. Lenny died with the farm dream. The sad story ended. Through George and Lenny's fate, Steinbeck showed American farmers' reality during capitalism's surge, their ill-timed American dream. Of Mice and Men draws from Robert Burns' poem, "The best laid schemes of mice and men gang after blay. Mice build careful nests, storing food, their best plans for survival, that they can't resist outside forces. Nests destroyed, eaten by predators. Their best plans fail. Mice and men's best plans failing symbolizes ordinary people's tragic fate. In the Depression, landless farmers' dream of owning land through hard work became another failed plan. George, Lenny, and Candy's farm dream, that best laid plan, was doomed to fail. Seems this dream ended due to Lenny accidentally killing Curly's wife. But beyond the accident lies inevitability. In this environment, George couldn't protect Lenny nor their dream. Their dream clashed with America's agricultural industrialization under socio-political conditions, the pastoral dream was doomed to vanish. Lenny's death was inevitable. Despite being smart, George couldn't escape migrant labor. Killing his best friend reflected despair and society's cruelty. After killing Lenny, he gave up. No more saving for farms, just drinking with others to numb the pain. Old Candy inevitably faced being fired. Through realism, the novel captures migrant workers' fate and intense land longing in Depression-era America. Moreover, Lenny the idiot giant embodies multi-layered metaphors. Lenny's first metaphor, his rejection of reality. His irrational persistence personifies desire, all farmers' fierce dream of owning land. Simple-minded yet stubbornly persistent, Lenny lacked reasoning but clung fiercely. He remembered every farm dream detail: buying a house with George, raising cows or rabbits, cozy winter stoves, thick cream, forgetting all else. When bragging to Crooks dismissed it. If George gets shot in town, you'll be chained in a madhouse like a dog. During this, Lenny's face changed. He shouted, "You're lying! George won't get hurt! Nobody says that!" And he refused any possibility of the dream shattering. Lenny fiercely threatened Crooks, his only conscious aggression. Lenny's disability held a foolish obsession, reckless devotion to the dream. Steinbeck said land longing like Lenny's wasn't insanity. It represented everyone's vague yet intense desire. So Lenny isn't just a character, he's the personification of yearning. Candy, moved by George and Lenny's dream, also showed foolish obsession after joining their plan. This personified longing proves itself powerfully. Candy sat endlessly in the bunkhouse sharpening pencils, calculating. He planned imaginary rabbits to raise with George and Lenny, this frail, disabled man who'd once been so timid and submissive. Now he endlessly debated his dream, loudly dismissing all doubts. He even dared rage at the farm owner's daughter-in-law, kicking over a nail keg. The second metaphor of foolishness, the separation of human reason and dreams. In the farm dream, George and Lenny shared will, but reason and dream split roles. George seemingly led, yet the mentally challenged Lenny truly clung to it. This shows dreams detached from reason, regressing to a simpleton, becoming not confrontation with reality, but rejection and escape. Lenny used dreams to numb himself. Without George, he'd just hide in a cave. Lenny's disability represents spiritual escapism. George and Lenny's longed-for farm was just a glorified cave, revealing Lenny's disability's third meaning. Facing fate, humans are fundamentally fragile and powerless. Behind Lenny lurks an unknown force. Before it, all human wisdom is childish simplicity. Even capable George admitted, "I ain't so bright neither, else I wouldn't be bucking barley for $50. If I was bright, I'd be harvesting my own crops." But Lenny wasn't just an idiot, but a giant. His uncontrolled strength killed Curly's wife, destroying his dream, making him his own enemy. Lenny symbolizes human imperfection, powerlessness, and the fractured self. Humans are their own enemies, helpless before themselves. So, in this sense, Of Mice and Men is a realist masterpiece about dreams and friendship. But even more, it's a modern fable about human destiny. In 1962, at the Nobel ceremony, Steinbeck said, "We have usurped many powers once attributed to God. Terrified and unprepared, we wield life and death authority over all living things." Of Mice and Men shows just the tip of Steinbeck's intellectual iceberg. Beneath its layered metaphors lies profound and massive significance. The depth Steinbeck achieved makes some scholars consider the slim novel more perfect than his epic The Grapes of Wrath. Thus today, over half a century later, it still moves hearts, with depths awaiting discovery, worthy of savoring. All right, that concludes our interpretation of Mice and Men. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.